In the past, our Anishinaabe Nation economy was simple. We were connected to each other, but not connected to the world outside. Our economy was based on our ability to survive through our traditional hunting and gathering. Now, our economy is very different. With the arrival of the European settlers came the development of the fur trade, leading to the growth of our First Nations people as leaders in the Ontario economy today. But our journey is not over. Recent development in the NAN First Nation territories, such as the De Beers Victor Diamond Mine, Ontario Power Generation Lower Mattagami project, or most recently, the huge chromite deposit found in the NAN First Nations, known as the Ring of Fire, are providing many new opportunities, especially in the area of resource development. Now is the time to join together and formulate a regional strategy for the NAN territory. An important first step has already been taken. On February 22, 2011, the Anishinaabe Nation gathered together for the inaugural NAN Economic Summit. The intent of the 2011 NAN Economic Summit was to engage constituents and encourage them to provide feedback and opinions on each of the topics discussed. In each workshop topic, attendees were presented with 3 questions. A series of discussions then took place to provide input and recommendations regarding these 3 questions. NAN then took that information and created a plan of action that would help build our economy together. NAN's 2011 Economic Summit kicked off with Deputy Grand Chief Les Lulit opening with an address to delegates.
Today, our economic independence is in our hands. In Latin, it says carpe diem. And what that means is seize the day. So today is your opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, elders, city councilors and representatives from government, we need to all work together to do this. And I want to remind you of what Minister Michael Gravel recently said. If we're going to do anything, the Ring of Fire, we're going to do it right. Well, I promise him this. We are going to do it right. It's going to start right here today. Amigos, thank you very much.
Some of the highlights of this spectacular 3-day event included 12 different topic sessions on how we can build our economy together. We heard insightful, informative, and inspirational presentations from...
So we're purely focused on community and economic development and business growth and competitiveness and strategies and innovation. And our community economic development program recognizes the unique challenges facing Northern Ontario communities, and we want to help them create conditions that are vital for economic growth and development. And so FEDNR will focus on projects that build on the capacity of communities through sound strategic and business planning.
Ministers Gravel, Linda Jeffrey, and Chris Bentley, along with various other ministries, were in attendance and presented on the topics including capacity building in the NAN territory and economic planning in the NAN territory.
What a difference a few years can make. You just heard Representative of Minister Dogood talk about not plans, not hopes, not a vision, but actual projects and programs that are underway, being implemented for the benefit of First Nations, employing and benefiting First Nations people and opportunities.
We're eager to see the progress that can be made as far as economic development for First Nations. And the summit is addressing the challenges of the new wave, the tsunami of economic opportunity that we know is coming to the far north. And meeting those challenges demands cooperation and commitment from all levels of government, including First Nations, as well as resource industries and local communities. Our vision, Ontario's vision, is to work jointly with First Nations and to make wise land use decisions to support the economy and to sustain traditional ways of life.
I believe that step by step we can work our way through the issues, particularly the issues that perhaps remain unresolved today. Step by step, I believe that we can reach this crossroad, and together I believe that we can set out on the direction to prosperity for everyone.
NAN's 2011 Economic Summit featured riveting and informative presentations on the Ring of Fire.
If our future generations lose the rights to access these lands and resources, how will we be accommodated? In all of these approaches, Matawa First Nations as a region and as individual communities continue to push that we will not allow any industry within our territory without prior consultation and accommodation of the local First Nations people.
The elders, they want to make sure that everybody is going to be heard in our communities, including the youth, everybody, and that there needs to be hearings in each of our communities, and anywhere that's going to affect, anywhere the Ring of Fire is going to affect the other First Nations. I know Atawabaskat could be infected, so we need to have these kind of hearings so our people's input can be all gathered. It may take 2 years, it may take 3 years.
This summit is about fostering partnerships and economic development with Aboriginal communities and building community capacity to meaningfully engage and participate, I think, is going to be absolutely key to the success of the implementation and this development.
The outcome of the 2011 NAN Economic Summit produced many positive recommendations for building our economy together. Those recommendations included: NAN can provide political advocacy to First Nation local economic development initiatives. NAN can develop a regional economic strategic plan. NAN can develop a NAN-wide database of the First Nation inventories, where tribal councils will have a regional database and First Nations have their community database. This database could then be developed into a NAN census with accurate and up-to-date statistics. NAN can develop a database or First Nation business portal that shares information. Plan for a youth economic summit by providing the youth with resources to plan it. Research to investigate the need to establish a NAN-wide environmental agency and regime to meet the needs of NAN First Nations in dealing with environmental, ecological, and cultural impacts resulting from resource developments in the NAN territory.
That we need to talk about education, training, capacity building, and we need to talk about engaging the youth in this roadmap, because after all, it would be the youth's inheritance on what we're doing today. How that evolves is going to be, we've got to look at 7 generations into the future.
When people get a chance to kind of speak what's going on, what they, like what they're thinking right at the moment, and I think that's good. Like, you can get that feedback right away. We need to get more youth involved. I know, like during the summit, a couple students came out from a local high school, and everyone wanted to hear what they had to say. And I just kept hearing that like over and over. Like, we got to get young people involved because they're the ones that are going to be graduating from high school, and they're going to have to choose a career, and go to school and that kind of thing. So we need to like see what they think about all this stuff that's going on in terms of economic development.
It was a good learning opportunity for them as well, and something that they could take home that's hands-on and really look at their own communities and say, okay, how can I start implementing these things, and how can I grow my community to prosper and stuff like that, eh?
The first priority was that we should develop a NAN-wide strategic plan. Economic strategic plan. That was number one. Another one was to help the communities become more investment ready. So doing community asset inventories, gaps analysis, market, study for those First Nations, so that the community level would have a database identifying all of their assets. The tribal councils would have a database, identifying the regional assets, and then NAN having a territorial asset base, then potentially providing, an opportunity for NAN to develop maybe their own NAN census, with realistic numbers.
The success of this conference, I think, came from the fact that we engaged our own people at all levels throughout the conference. Yeah, everybody that I talked to was very, very happy, very surprised that we had this quality of people involved from all sectors, all levels, and
They were happy. They were saying how good the conference was, and the subject topics were areas where they didn't know much about. Well, they attended that workshop, and it gave them that opportunity to listen to other First Nation members from across the territory and sharing their experiences and knowledge of economic and resource development. So, you know, 3 days you can only jam so many topics and participants or speakers, and of course there was a demand for more. The bigger picture strategy is the regional economic development strategy that will map out the road towards economic independence. And we're talking about Anishinaabe economic development and resource developments that are going to impact the First Nations. Without a plan, without discussing it, we have no means of achieving what we should be achieving and how we benefit. So the best way to do it is to gather people that are expert in those sectors of economic and resource development, have a discussion, and they will provide you with the specifics. They will provide you with the broader goals and objectives.
The First Nation inventories component of it, that was a really good opportunity for First Nations to see that, hey, we can do this. We have funding that we can access to do these types of studies. There was we did a section on how we are impacted globally, and and how it impacts our First Nations up north.
I think that the communities can grow and develop and be self-sustaining. I mean, own their own projects, do their own thing, just educate themselves, grow.
Thank you to all the NAN First Nation participants, First Nation chiefs, councillors, economic development officers, and other people from industry and government that were key to the success of this conference.
Thanks for coming, and it was great to see everybody that came out there, and I think the people that showed up were supposed to be there, kind of thing. And there was a lot of good discussions and good recommendations. People had brought up stuff that I haven't even thought of, and I'm sure it was like that with the other people, that the organizers. Wow, we didn't even think of that one. It's a good thing we're doing this. It's I want to run with that idea, that kind of thing,
The mission is never over, okay? When you're doing anything with regards to economic development, it's a continuous it's a continuous project. I mean, there's always going to be something more that you're going to have to develop. There's always going to be needs. There's always going to be advocacy required and support for the community. So, I mean, this is a starting point. This was just a starting point.
Well, we started implementing the NAN Economic Summit recommendations. We put out 4 key areas, which is to work on involving youth and economics. The other one was to initiate that First Nations database, and that's why the First Nations inventories are there. We're working on a regional economic strategic plan, and that's going to take a while to do, but at least we're doing the footwork for that now.
Well, check out our website at naneconomicsummit.ca. I mean, there's a lot of information on that site. There's pictures, there's the entire summit report, the recommendations are there.
Today, starting today, that we have a collective responsibility to make sure that everybody living in what is now known as Ontario, Canada, and Anishinaabe has a bright future to look forward to. So I do thank the ministers being here, because there are 3 things that has to happen to make sure that what they're talking about, what my leadership is talking about, the vision and hope my young people have, is that there has to be legislative changes to reflect for a better future for First Nations. There has to be policy changes. The practices has to change from the last 100 years. I think it's a good conference.
We have a great challenge before us, and it's a collective responsibility to make sure that everybody benefits from whatever undertaking we're jointly looking at.